In this video, I'm going to show you a few ways you can solve the extended cross, which is solving the cross plus one F2L pair at the same time. Solving an extended cross means that you solve your cross and one F2L pair at the same time, which means that when you finish your cross, there's already one F2L pair solved, and there are two basic ways to do this. The first way is essentially just using block building or other techniques to build a 2x2x2 block and then solve the last cross piece or last two cross pieces directly after that. It's important to note that you shouldn't try and force yourself to do extended crosses. I generally do them 1 in every 3 or 1 in every 4 solves, and only when it's easy and makes sense to do them. So there are a few ways you can build a 2x2x2 block. The first of which is where you basically just have pieces positioned nicely, and it's very straightforward to build the block. So in this case, we have the white and blue edge at the back here, and we have the white and red edge here, which is already connected to the white, red, and blue corner correctly. So for example, if we did a U and then placed this cross edge in, this corner would be solved as well. So if we undo that, we want to try and solve this corner as well as the blue and red edge here. So if we notice that the blue and red edge is down here, if we do an L prime and then do a U, that pairs up that pairs up this white red edge with the corner piece, with the center piece here, as well as this corner piece with the edge piece here, so that when we do our L2, we're inserting not only this corner, but we're already also correctly inserting this F2L pair, like that. And then we can do the last two cross pieces with just R prime, F prime. So here's a slightly more difficult version of the same case that I showed you before. So we have the white and blue edge solved in the back here, and we have the white and red edge over here, and it's matched up correctly with this corner piece here, so that, there's a chance that we can put these two in correctly and solve the edge to make a 2x2x2 block. So we want to get these two pieces up to this position, and we want to get the F2L edge, which matches up with this corner, which is the red and blue edge. We want to put it here at the same time. So what we can do is do a U prime and F prime to place this edge here. Notice that when we place this edge, this red sticker is lining up with the red center like we want it. So undoing that, so U prime, F prime brings this up into the top layer and moves this edge here. Notice that if we simply did an F prime and then an L, this edge would be here, but it would be misoriented like that. So it's important to do the U prime to place this edge here, and then do the F prime to orient it correctly. And then we can just simply do a U to match up these two pieces, and then do an L2 to make this block. And our last two cross edges are here and here. So we'll solve them like that. Another way in which you can build a 2x2x2 block is if you have a case where, say, we have two cross pieces solved here already, and we have this F2L pair that's already formed. In most situations, it makes a lot of sense to just insert that F2L pair and then solve your remaining two cross pieces. However, again, I would only really do this if it's very easy to do, because trying to insert two cross edges after inserting an F2L pair can sometimes be a bit tricky and mess up your look ahead going into F2L. So basically, after you build a 2x2x2 block, you insert the remaining edges into your cross without messing the 2x2x2 block up, and then you have an extended cross. As I said before, there's many ways to build a 2x2x2 block. This is something that's mostly intuitive, and you'll find you'll be able to do more easily with a lot of practice. The cutoff or boundary at which I'd actually do this sort of technique is if I'm able to quickly plan an easy 2x2x2 block and plan the other two cross pieces in inspection, then I think it's probably worth doing an extended cross like this. So apart from block building, the other main extended cross technique is to use keyhole. And the trick with keyhole is to identify the situations where your cross has an extra corner solved with it, like that, or where there's an extra edge solved in its position. As I showed you just then, if, for example, we have this edge correctly solved in this position, and our cross is misaligned by 1 or 2 moves, we can insert the corresponding corner for this edge piece in between the two cross pieces where it belongs. And then when we align our cross, the corner will be brought around and matches up with the edge piece that's already solved, so that when we align our cross, it automatically forms the cross and one F2L pair. So that's what I mean by using keyhole. It also works the other way around. So for example, if we see that we already have this corner in its correct position, and we notice the edge in the top layer here, we can insert this edge and then align our cross layer like that. So here's just one more example of using Keyhole. So if we have this corner piece solved here, the white, green and orange one, and we have the white and green edge up here in the top layer, then what we can do without rotating, if our crosses incorrectly are aligned, we can insert this edge into the back between the green and orange centerpieces, and then do a D prime to align our cross, which solves this corner into place. And since we've already solved this edge, that forms the cross and an F2L pair, so the extended cross. The cutoff at which I would normally do an extended cross using Keyhole is only if the corner or edge that I need to insert with Keyhole is actually in the top layer. You can also be more efficient using Keyhole if you plan it out far enough. So for example, if we have this cross edge that remains to be solved, that we still need to solve, and we have this red and green edge already in its place, and the corresponding corner for this F2L edge is up here, we can do something like R2, instead of just doing R and then inserting this corner piece down here and then doing a D2, like that, we can do an R2 and then cancel that move by doing a U prime and then do an R prime. So we've solved this corner, then we do a D2 to solve the F2L pair entirely. There's also another thing that I'd like to tack onto this tutorial, which is actually slightly modifying your cross solutions so that you preserve or influence F2L pieces whilst you do the cross. And you shouldn't go over the top with this. If a pair is difficult to preserve, then let it go and don't worry about it. Only preserve it if it's a minor change to your cross solution. But for example, here, if we have these three edges correctly solved relative to one another, off by a D2, this one, and this one, and we have this last cross piece up here. If we get in a situation where, for example, this F2L pair is already solved in its position, we can simply do an L prime to move it out into the top layer so that we don't have to do a D2 to break it up. If we do an L prime to move it into the top layer, and then do a D2, that preserves this F2L pair, so we can insert it right after we solve that cross piece, like that. In addition to preserving F2L pairs, we can also influence F2L pieces whilst we do the cross by adding, one or two extra moves to set up easy F2L cases after we do the cross. So for example, if we're inserting our last cross piece, this white and blue one here, we notice this white, blue and orange corner down here, which will come up into the top layer when we do an F. Now its corresponding F2L edge is over here. So instead of doing an F and solving this piece straight away, if we add a U2 and then do an F, that solves the cross, and we only added one move, and now this F2L pair is paired up and ready to insert, like that. Lastly, your ultimate goal with all of this is that you should try and plan this sort of thing out in inspection. Trying to build blocks or use Keyhole or preserve F2L pairs is far more beneficial if you've actually planned it out in your inspection time, because it can be very difficult and challenging to actually try and do this sort of thing on the fly without actually planning it out beforehand.